She's an educator who loves to teach and talk and tell stories. Today she will talk to you about if at first you don't succeed, try something different. If you first don't succeed, try something different. Dr. Camesha.
Thank you, Master Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I would like to begin off with a story. It was crunch time. I was 9 years old, and I had no longer wanted to be a dancer because they practiced too hard, and I couldn't stand upon my toes. And so my mom saw that I had too much rambunctious energy and that I was very tenaciously getting on her nerves. She decided to put me in something else, twirling. And it was at the last 4 weeks of twirling. And I entered in, and they wanted us to compete to be feature twirlers. In being a feature twirler, you had to be able to throw the baton up in the air, spin around 3 times, and catch it twice without dropping it. I thought this was no short of a task. I've always loved to twirl the little plastic batons, but when I was measured for a baton, that thing was heavy. And they wanted me to throw this thing up and hit myself in the head and catch it. This feat was something very, very tenacious. So basically, what I had to do with now 3 weeks down, because I had to get over the stigma of this heavy baton, I had to think about what type of training that I would use. And so I went to one of the older twirlers and I said, would you please help me? I really want to be a feature twirler. I can aspire to be a feature twirler, but I need help. And as she looked at me, she laughed and she said, you want to do what? I said, I want to be a feature twirler. She said, competition is in less than 3 weeks. I said, I know, but I tenaciously wanted to be a feature twirler. She could not stop me. She said, let me see your technique. Technique? You expect for me to have a technique? What is a technique? I'm only 8, so you're using words way over here. And she said, let me see how you hold your baton. And so I showed her, and I grabbed it like this, and I started doing it like this. And she said, no. Who taught you how to twirl the baton? I said, no one. I taught myself. She said, let me show you this. In order to throw the baton up in the air, you must allow it to roll off the top of your thumb. That means you can't have a Vulcan death grip on the baton. You must allow it to move in and out of your hand. She said, let me show you something else. She put the baton in my fingers, and she said, twirl it in between your fingers so until you get comfortable with it. And I did just that. And I went home, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced. And I got up to a 1 around. Well, it was only a week later, 1 week to the competition. And I said, oh my goodness, I really want to be a feature twirler. I have an opportunity to be a feature twirler. And so I practiced. I did not do any homework. The spelling bee was Friday. The spelling bee is a different story. But I wanted to win that too. But I wanted to be the feature twirler. And I practiced and I practiced. And I got up to turn it around twice and catching the baton with no problems. Not hitting my head, not breaking a neighbor's window. I actually made it. It was 3 days to competition. My little 8-year-old body tingled with expectation and excitement, but I haven't made it to 3 around. And so I went to the competition, and I was very, very fierce, and I was ready to compete. And I was competing against the young lady who taught me. She said, you're not ready. I said, watch me. I'm going to make it. And so I went up to compete, and it was 5 of us. And they said, twirler number 1. Of course, I was twirler number 3. I said, oh, she dropped it. Yes. Twirler number 2. Oh, she dropped it. Yes. So me with my self-confident behind, I said, I'm going to twirl and do a magnificent twirl. And I wound up as beautiful and I threw the baton up, and I froze. Because the baton went way across the building. And I couldn't believe I actually practiced, and I knew if I could get it up high enough, I could make it around 3 times. So, of course, I knew I wasn't going to be a feature twirl that year. So, I didn't succeed. And as I was crying on the step, the director said, well, you can do a tour around. You can be a whistleblower. I said, again? She said, yes. And that's when I decided that if I don't succeed at first, I can do something different.